Welcome to Talk to the Moon. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a movie review on Avatar 3, Fire and Ash. The first part, we're going to do it without the spoilers, so you're good if you haven't watched it. And then we'll let you know when the spoilers are about to start dropping, right? So we've obviously watched part 1 and 2, and overall we want to keep it kind of simple. We're not like movie, theatrical experts here. We're just two people's opinions on the movie franchise that we have been following since 2009. And obviously this channel is about living life better and maintaining our inner peace, right? And I was thinking about what can we talk about that is linked to the movie that I can drop and share with you about that, but it's not really about the movie itself or the content. I was thinking and I realized that to live better, you should appreciate the little things in life. And I realized that watching a simple movie like The Avatar allowed me to appreciate something really special about going to the movies. I mean, obviously, many of us have gone to movies hundreds of times in our lifetime. And I watched the series with this guy here all the way through. And it's a family tradition, you know, and to be able to share the memories with our family member and to be able to have those memories and talk about them, even though this is not a big vacation, you're not buying $1,000 gift, it's not something tremendously monumental, but in a way it is, because you are gaining that memory dollar that is so precious that you may or may not have it ever again. And I think if we can capitalize on that, and if we really can cherish those moments where we're like, wow, that was a small moment. Going to the park, going ice skating, going to the library together, walking at the beach together, whatever it is, going to fish at the lake, something simple like that, that may not be costly, that may not be a big project, just to be able to do it with the ones that we love and care for. I think that is a huge takeaway that I've gotten from this, just because I reflected on it. And I would like for you to think, you know, this is the holidays when we're recording this, to think about like, what is it that you feel like that you do in your life that is kind of simple, but is something that's really worthy in your life, right? So we want to keep it kind of simple and do the like, dislike, and something in between. So I'll start with the like first, and then we can chit chat together. I like the fact that it had a great cast. That there's pretty much the same cast from part 1 and 2, but there's a new character, not giving anything away, Varang. You see her in the trailers, the lady with the red paint and whatnot. She looks pretty menacing. I looked her up, and she was basically the wife from Game of Thrones, King in the North. If you're the Game of Thrones fans like us, it means something, and she did a phenomenal job. I feel like any movie that we watch, if the character development and if they didn't cast a right antagonist, I think the movie or storyline just falls apart really quickly. And I personally can't seem to get really interested in it or remain interested in it. So I think her character was fantastic, along with the development that they did with the Colonel's character. Again, this is not a spoiler part, so I'm not going to give anything away. You know the Colonel's in it, and what they do in the movie, what James Cameron does with their character, I thought it was fantastic. What did you like?
My favorite part was probably trying to think of non-spoiler options. I guess the cinematography is always like fantastic in Cameron movies. I felt like for this one they like took it to another level,
right?
Especially towards the middle where there are different changes and things like that. We obviously get the setting from 2 where they're in the village and the water tribe people are there, and that sort of thing comes back. But then we get more in-depth look into new things in the universe that have been there,
right?
But we didn't get to see it in the first and second one, and I thought it was just really a beautiful movie. And I don't know, expecting it to like work as well as the first and second one, I don't know, it's not like I had low expectations, but just to see it like exceeded and pushed every time is really nice.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, cinematography and the special effects was like on a whole different level. So you would like that if you were the fan of part 1 and 2 on that. What I was kind of disappointed on, no, this would be a spoiler, so no. There were some things that I was expecting because it's a new aspect of this franchise, right? And it wasn't there. And I'll keep it at that and keep it short. And if you watch it and you might buy the same thing, or you'll catch it in spoilers. But basically there were some things that I felt like this was gonna bring just because it was fire and ash. And there was something just like slightly missing. So I felt a little bit uncooked, you know what I mean? Unbaked, if you would. So that was the part that I didn't like as much, or maybe slightly disappointed coming off from watching it. You?
There weren't a lot of like glaring negatives for me. There were some moments where I wished there could have been better, like, not main villain characterization, but kind of like the military-industrial complex side of it. A lot of their motivations felt kind of one-dimensional, which was probably on purpose, but I think there could have been more to give them something other than like money good, nothing else cares bad. Like
Right. That was kind of going along too parallel to part 1 and 2, I think. Yeah. So, etc. What would I say is the etc.? There are some emotional development that happens in this particular movie that I wasn't expecting. It was on a good note. I guess once I've seen it, it made a lot of sense. So someone who has a psychology background, as you know by now, and someone who I guess keenly watches for things like that in the movies and shows, I found it to be very, I appreciate it a lot. I got a lot out of that aspect of it. So hopefully if you stick around for the spoilers, I'll let you know more about that aspect of it. So yeah, there was some emotional value that I felt like I got out of it that I may not have bargained for, but it was on the good side.
I pretty much only have spoilers left for my part.
Got
So.
it. All right, so at this point, if you'd like to pause or leave, that's great. And then after you watch it, you can come back for the spoilers, and then we can continue. Right? Right. So, spoiler part, okay? We warned you, okay? And we'll recycle that. The positive for me was, and I'll lead right into the fact that it dealt with grief process. And for me, it's a huge thing, and I'll do a whole different video on this in the future because it's very dear to my heart. I don't believe in Western culture, and I can't speak for all Western cultures, but in America, we don't grieve well when we lose our loved ones, and every one of us are gonna lose somebody eventually, right? And holidays are especially tough for people that are dealing with the memories of the lost ones. And this movie continues from part 2, obviously, of losing their elder son. And it's how each people, the family members, deal with it. Jake deals with it one way, obviously, if you've seen it. He's more like, I'm just gonna work, I'm just gonna handle this protection business and go forth. Kind of like your typical worker bee kind of folks, right? As soon as the funeral's over, let's go. We got to pick up the pieces and keep on going. No time to cry, no time to whine about it. And I think that's very flawed, you know? And I think the movie kind of picks up on that. And as a society, we can do better and should do better, but we don't push that enough. We don't allow ourselves to truly grieve like we should. And whereas Neytiri goes into like a little bit extra, the polar opposite spectrum of it, and she does well with it, but because they're butting heads with the way they're dealing with the grief process, that brings out the conflict. And I mean, it's meant to be that way in the movie, I believe, but I felt like that was a good thing to show because that's real, you know? That's how people really go through conflicts like that in real life. And the three kids are also going through it in a different way, in their own way as well. So None of us are monolithic. We're all gonna deal with things in a different way, especially when it comes to emotional issues. And I think the movie captured that pretty well. So that was my big takeaway on a positive note. There are other positives, but that was the main one.
I did enjoy that, especially the opening scene was really cool. I wasn't quite sure what was happening at first. I was like, why is he back? and then you're like, oh, like this is him tapping into the dream. And that's like a really cool way for them to like lead in with the grief process from the get-go.
Right.
Not to mention that leads me to my positive, which is the whole idea of foreshadowing and like promises. A lot of good movies and good literature will give you promises at some point in the first third-ish. And then if they're strong enough promises and they don't give you the delivery of the promise at the 2/3 or 3/3 mark, then you'll feel disgruntled or kind of cheated as an audience member. There's a couple moments where they do that. The connection with the like the underwater portion, where they I think they even say it out loud, where they're like, "Kitty, if you connect with it again underwater, you're going to die," and like it's a very severe promise that then gets delivered on. And then like a smaller one is the scientist that keeps coming up on the military camp, and he's like dissenting against the opinions, and like finally, eventually, he's part of how Jake gets out. So,
and you know when Kitty died, I felt like that was also foreshadowing towards she actually will die, but just not physically, right? That her old self will die and she'll be renewed into her new self, like a transcendental self. And I think that was kind of a cool foreshadowing on that, because when we think about death, we usually just think about simplistically live, breathing, kicking, and dead, okay? Whereas there in the movie and in some other spiritual aspects of our lives, there is a old death, old me, and then the new me version of it. And I think that transitioned really well. So that was pretty cool. Negative. So the title is Fire and Ash, yeah? So the second one was water. So we had a lot of water things happening that was new to part 2 that wasn't there in part 1. So I was wholly expecting some fiery creatures, right? Maybe not a whole different species of Navi. That would have been cool too. But I mean, they look different. So I'll give you that. The new Navi kind of look different. So I'll give you a pass. But there was no other new animals, right? And that's what's so cool about the Avatar series. And they were kind of like rehashing the same flying dragon-y type of animals, and then the watery type animals, which they're still cool, but where's the fire ones? I want some fire-breathing dragons. Where are they? Okay, so I didn't get that, so I felt a little empty in my soul here.
I mean, we did get a different climate. You know, we got to go up. And what I was talking about earlier, alluding to it, was the transition where they're on the airships. Those were cool. Those were new animals. They just weren't fiery. Technically, they were kind of fiery, if you think about the fact that they were hydrogen, and then they got exploded into fire. There was
I need more like real fire animals. I don't know about that.
Yeah, that was part of my negative. Not necessarily the animals, but the camp. And like the setting on like what looked like an ash mount, where it might have been built in like an old volcano, but we didn't really know. And it was just like a small, like dusty camp where they were set up. And then we don't really get more about where this tribe is set up and like what their culture really is. Besides, we like to steal things and we keep bones. Like that was their whole thing, and that was all we got. And I thought that was kind of meh, but.
And finally, the etc. part. Here's a little foreshadowing amount. I could be hella wrong, okay? So you can come for me if I'm wrong on part 4, okay? You can come at me in 4 years, because I think that's when it's gonna be released. But my prediction is, I think Colonel part 3.0, I guess, when he comes back on part 4, I believe he's gonna have a change of heart. because we've seen this little transformation within. He was kind of torn halfway. I think he's going to have some sort of a epiphany or awakening moment from within, and I think he's going to turn sides to the good. Okay, so that'll be kind of neat to see. I don't have that kind of hope for humanity in general. I think human beings are cooked. They're gonna be just humans. But I think Colonel, since he's kind of a Navi-esque type of being right now, I think he can turn, and that's what I kind of foresee. Now, if you want to drop in the comments, like, I haven't researched, but is it just me, or are the dragons copied from Final Fantasy X? If you're a Final Fantasy X fan like us, we strongly feel like those things were just like copied and pasted by James Cameron. Don't sue me. But that I felt a little iffy about it, but I mean, it still looks cool in the movies. So that's my etc. on that.
It's tough to copyright dragons as a concept.
That's true. That's true.
I guess my etc. could be a whole video in and of itself, but like the idea of what it means to be was explored in the film, like the Colonel's memories inhabiting a new body. Is he still him? Where does he go from that? Like, I think Jake says at some point, like, because he's been separated from his past in that sense, like he's free to choose for himself. And I feel like that's pretty interesting because I, not yet, but we don't have that option of just putting our memories in a new body, but we can still make that choice to like separate from our old selves and our old existence and move on and do new things. Which is probably a great topic for a whole thing. But.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we can do a whole new topical thing for altered carbon kind of scenario where you can just upload your memory and become a whole different person in a synthetic type of body and then keep reliving your life over and over to be eternal. That's an interesting concept. So hopefully you enjoyed our first movie review. We're gonna do these more because we love movies, we love shows, and we want to share our thoughts and opinions. So thanks a lot. Enjoy your holidays.